Okay, well here we are with some quick tips on how to prepare for a media interview. This is for a radio interview. The same preparation applies to a TV interview, but there is a visual aspect to a TV interview, which we can look at in another video. But the preparation for a radio and TV interview are really the same. We're going to look at a pre-recorded interview. So this is a pre-recorded interview. Right, okay, so first of all, preparation. Number one is really to see this as an opportunity. Don't be nervous about it. This is your opportunity to get your message across. The media has contacted you because you are an expert in this particular field and they want to hear what you've got to say. So be calm and don't be nervous. It really is an opportunity. So point one, it's an opportunity. So do remember that. Point two, you have to decide what it is you want to get across. What message do you want to communicate to a wider audience? Don't be led by the media organisation that is conducting the interview. You really have to see this as an opportunity to say what you want to say about the subject. And remember, if it's a pre-recorded interview, the interview could go on for 5 or 10 minutes, from which they will select a clip of sometimes no more than 10 or 15 seconds, depending on the program. It might be longer, but they're looking generally for a short clip. And if you've given a 5 or 10 minute interview and said lots and lots of different things, they can use anything, any part of that interview in a clip. And it won't necessarily be the bit that you wanted to get across, because they don't know what the most important bits are. You know that. So really the best strategy is to make 1 or 2 good points at most. So 1 or 2 good points. And decide beforehand what those points are. When you go into this interview, what is it that you want to say? And remember again, you're the expert, so you can make that decision. And this is your opportunity to get that message across. So really, that's, in terms of what you're going to say, that's the preparation. Have a think about what it is that you want to get across and see it as an opportunity. Also, you need to keep it as simple as you possibly can. So when you're actually being interviewed, try to avoid jargon. Now that is very important. People that you talk to on a daily basis who understand your subject will understand the jargon. The wider audience that you're communicating to in this particular interview won't. Avoid it. You will lose your audience, and you don't want to do that, because again, this is a golden opportunity to get your message across. It is an opportunity, and you should see it as that. Okay, so that's the mental preparation that should take place. When the reporter arrives, or when you see the reporter if you're going into their building, have a little chat with them just to find out what their angle is. Don't necessarily ask them that question directly, but just chat to them about the story, what's the context in which you're appearing, why are they choosing you, who else have they spoken to? They may have spoken to other people about this story, and what have they said. And remember, in most cases, the interview won't be confrontational. In most cases, unless you're a politician, or unless you've done something wrong, in which case it's a different strategy. This video doesn't really apply to you, but in most cases this is an interview that will illustrate their piece. That is why they are speaking to you. So that's the preparation. When it comes to the recording, make sure you're comfortable. You don't want any stress to be identifiable in your voice, so you want to be sitting or standing comfortably. And certainly if it's a radio interview, there's one thing you must do. You must smile while you're talking, because you can hear a smile. If someone is smiling, you can hear it when they speak. So you must smile when you're talking, even if it's only a slight smile. I'm not smiling now, but when I start smiling, you can hear it in my voice. I'm smiling now, and it gives you a warmth that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise have. So you must remember to smile. And also, be as bright as you can be, a brighter version of yourself as you can be, the biggest version of yourself that you can be. That is very important. Otherwise, you could sound a little dull. And if you do, they might not use you. They might use someone else, or they might use a shorter clip of you, and you don't want that. So that's another thing to bear in mind. Be as bright as you can be, and smile. Enthusiasm, I suppose, is what we're trying to convey. Enthusiasm is what we want to get across. So the listeners can identify that in the way that you speak. Okay. So those are things to bear in mind. Now, when it comes to the actual interview itself, it's worth remembering that you are there, you are doing this interview because you want to get a particular message across. You're not necessarily there to answer all the questions that are being asked of you. Again, if you're a politician or if you've done something wrong, it's a different situation. So what you want to try to do is the reporter will ask a question. So they will ask question 1. And you will then reply, you will answer with something. And then the reporter will ask another question. Question 2. Now, it might be that question 2 is very different from question 1. It might also be that question 2 isn't really relevant to the piece because the reporter won't necessarily know what's relevant and what isn't relevant. Remember, you're the expert. So the trick is, in question 2, if it's a different question, you really still want to try to get your point across. So what you ought to try to do is to try to work those points that you've already thought about in the preparation of the video, in the preparation of the interview, into the reply again. And that's how it will go. So they'll ask you a question, and you will answer it again, and then they'll ask question 3, and you will answer that, and then they'll ask question 4, and you will answer that, and question 5, and so on. So in each of these questions, you need to try to work in your message. And you can give yourself a little mental tick each time you've worked them in. Now, why do you want to do this? Well, let's look at a linear line of this interview. Okay, so this is the interview. And you have question 1, answer 1. Question 2, answer 2. Question 3, answer 3. Question 4, answer 4. When the reporter gets back to the newsroom, they will listen through to the interview and they might think, oh, I really like this section here. I think that's the best bit. That's when he sounded the most enthusiastic. That's the bit I want to use. Now, if you don't adopt the strategy of weaving your points into every answer, it might be that this selection that they choose is when you were off subject, is when you weren't really talking about what it is that you went in to discuss in your own mind. And then they will put that section into their news bulletin. All this will be forgotten, it won't be heard by the audience. The only bit they'll hear is this bit. And that's the bit where you're off message. So with a pre-recorded interview, it is essential that you work your message in to every answer, so that when one of your answers is taken out of context of the wider interview, you can be heard saying what it is that you wanted to say. Now, it will sound odd when you're doing the interview because it will sound like you're repeating yourself, and you shouldn't repeat yourself verbatim, but it is important to make sure that you get your message across. The other thing to bear in mind is that you might start rambling. It's easy to do, we've all done it. When they ask, question to blah, 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 answer, and you start going off down one route, and then you try to recover, it doesn't really work, and you just hope for the best and hope that they don't use that particular answer. The best thing to do in a pre-recorded interview, you can't do this when it's live, but when it's pre-recorded, if you get halfway through an answer and realise that you're rambling, you're not saying what you want to say, you've made a mess, just ask the reporter to stop. Say, I'm sorry, I've messed that up, I'd like to start again. And then just answer again. They won't put you in saying that because they want their piece to sound as good as it can. And it will mean that you can give yourself time to think and word the answer differently and make it exactly how you'd like it to sound. So there we have a very brief summary of how to prepare for a radio interview, for a pre-recorded, so remember this is for a pre-recorded, recorded radio interview. I hope that is useful. This video isn't supposed to replace doing proper media training, but if you haven't had any, or if it's been a while since you've had some, and you wanted a little refresher, then I hope it's been helpful, and I'll speak to you again in another tutorial.